Today, we are not just celebrating the life and work of a great African-American civil rights leader, a man who led the effort to end segregation and racism, a man who was jailed time again, a man who was beaten time and time again, a man who was maligned over and over and over again. And it is easy for us today in the year 2017, as the whole country celebrates Dr. King, to forget that in the last few years of his life, if you think governors and senators and mayors were standing up and saying, what a great man Dr. King was, read history, because you are sorely mistaken. What I admire most about Dr. King is not just the extraordinary work that he did, is the unbelievable courage that he showed. And by courage, I mean above and beyond walking into a crowd and knowing you're going to get beat. Man, that takes courage. But his courage was even greater than that. He had to make a choice in his life. He became a recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize. He was famous all over the world. All kinds of honors were given to him, and people said, you did a great job. You stood up to racism in Mississippi and Alabama and Georgia. You're a great man. You helped write and pass the Voting Rights Act. Wow, what an achievement for 10 lifetimes. And he could have accepted all of those awards and all of that praise. But his courage, extraordinary courage, was that he went into his heart and he went deeper. You just heard it. I want to thank the King family for allowing us to hear that unbelievable speech on Vietnam. And after he gave that speech, I was active in opposition to the war in Vietnam. I remember this. After he gave that speech, many of his liberal friends and all of the editorial papers in America, they said, who do you think you are? Your job was to fight segregation and racism, and we supported you. That's your job. That's what you are supposed to do. How dare you start telling the President of the United States about foreign policy? But he said, I cannot be true to myself and what I believe in if I am seeing poor people in Vietnam napalmed. I cannot be true to myself if I tell young African Americans who are fighting for civil rights in this country to be nonviolent when the United States government was the major purveyor of violence in the entire world. What courage that was. And the result of that, let us be frank, is that many people who financially supported Dr. King said, sorry. And his organization ran into problems. Let us not forget for a moment where Dr. King was when he was assassinated. It was not on what we would call a traditional civil rights event. He was standing up with exploited workers in Memphis, Tennessee. And he said, I will stand with workers who are underpaid, who are working with terrible working conditions. A worker there had died recently. I will stand with the oppressed workers in this country, black or white or Latino. And let us also not forget, sometimes our friends in the media forget it, what Dr. King was working on in the last months of his life. You know what he was working on? He was working on a poor people's march. He was saying that in this country, this is back then, the 60s, in this country of incredible wealth, why do we have so many people living in poverty? In this country which is spending so much on the military, why do so many not have health care or basic education? That was then. And here we are now. And if we are going to be honest in our support for Dr. King, it is necessary for us to bring his spirit and his courage into the year 2017. So we ask ourselves today that while it is easy for politicians to be saying nice words about Dr. King today, at the same time they are suppressing the votes, making it harder for black people and poor people to participate in our democracy. So I say to politicians all across this country, if you honestly believe in what Dr. King stood for, stop the voter suppression, allow all people to participate in the political process. When Dr. King was alive, he talked about the need to change our national priorities. That was true then. That is more true today. It is unacceptable that at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, we have people who want to give hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks to the 1% while veterans sleep out on the street in this country. It is not acceptable that in America we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. And as we speak, as the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people, we have those in Washington who want to throw 20 million people off of the health care they received under the Affordable Care Act and President Obama. And I know that if Dr. King were here today, he would be asking, how could it happen that in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, we have more people in jail than any other country on earth? And he would join us in saying that maybe we should be investing in jobs and education, not jails and incarceration. The great strength of Dr. King, that he understood that real change never takes place from the top on down, but always takes place when millions of people stand up and fight for justice. And today we are in a pivotal moment in American history, and never before have we got to bring together all of our people, black and white and Latino and Native American and Asian American, gay and straight, born in this country, coming from another country. Our job is to stand together and to create that community of love that Dr. King fought and died for. Thank you all very much.